Aloha mai kako. You are watching Hawaii Political Reporter.
Uh, how do we do it?
That being said, this is another area where my mom is definitely the expert. My mom they budget their food on my dad's retirement, so it's pretty minimal, and she manages to eat organic and build a menu for two. And the biggest most important component, and we actually need to get better at this, is planning ahead. Little obvious things that all good moms will tell you. Look at the sales. Look at your bulk beans for protein. You don't have to have, like, meats are much more expensive.
Yeah, we've started, and it's fun, and I think, like anything, once you start to get into it and do it a little bit, it starts to become a little more addictive. I have more basil growing right now than we really are going to know what to do with, and it was kind of a new thing. Had I really known what I was doing, I probably wouldn't have planted so much, but it's been fun and exciting. We've also been buying bulk beans, and again, you can get organic bulk beans, and it's not going to break your bank.
And you can store them for a while too.
You can store them, but we've been, soak them in a bowl for a while, and then boil them and do some rice, and then we basically have, kind of wrap fixings, so that when I'm getting ready to go to work, I can now bust out a wrap on my own and take that.
I think the hardest step for people who maybe want to make these leaps but don't know how, it has to be a little at a time, because it's really a lifestyle change. As aware and ahead of the curve as I kind of thought I was, or felt like I was, to incorporate, like, beans. Like, you have to soak them overnight, and we have a pressure cooker, so you can actually process them, boil them and stuff in about an hour. But I have to plan that. That's an hour out of the day. So basically, when I'm making breakfast, I do that, and then we kind of refrigerate them. So there are ways to experiment and have fun, but you have to plan for it, just like a good exercise routine. It has to be part of your lifestyle. And the idea, we really need to get away from the idea that food should be a thing of convenience. It's like everything else should be built around food and built around community. And that's really...
Exactly, as it was, and for so much of human history. Well, you guys also do some interesting things. Tell us about the goat chair.
See, we even lit up with excitement, even when you say that, because it was so much fun. Some friends of ours that Cassie knew and worked with, and this was actually a guy who got to the point where he quit that day job now.
And yeah, they basically have an urban farm called Sewing Circle Farm, and they have 3 pygmy goats, and now 2 sheep, several ducks, 2 cats. They're all very fun to visit. Of course, we go for the goats, but they set up a system where there's 2 milking shifts a day through the milking season, and it's 8 a.m., 8 p.m., and you pay $2 a shift, and you sign up, and you get all your milk. We got, in one evening shift, we got enough milk almost for a week.
That would last me through the week, and even though it maybe wasn't quite enough, or what I was used to, it made me ration it a little more. And I think also just in my own general trying to become more healthy, when I quit smoking cigarettes, which I think is worth noting right here, the coming up Monday will be my 1-year mark, July 15th. I started drinking less coffee, so I've used less milk in that coffee. So, I basically made the decisions like, this is your milk for the week. Deal with it. It
was great for our budget. It gave us, because at first it took us about 2 hours, and then we got down to about an hour. It can take a while to learn to milk. But it gave us time with the animals. It gave us time outside, and kind of because we're in an apartment that's pretty urban and kind of loud and trafficky. So I think we both found just having that quiet time a week spent with other animals just brought us a real feeling of peace. And then every time we drink the milk, we think of our goat friends, and
it went on. Essentially it went on to a point to where the owners kind of said, the goats need a break, basically. I was sad to see it stop, and I'm really excited and hoping that they'll start another season.
Ah, Portland. Well, even if you don't live in Portland, I'm sure that wherever you are, there are similar opportunities out there if you look for them. And if not, then that's certainly a market that could be filled by someone, because there is definitely demand for this type of thing. Not only goat sharing, but of course there are all sorts of things. There are lots of milk sharing programs across the United States that, of course, the FDA will try to crack down on, but it's still incumbent on the people out there to find them, to use them, to support them, and to stop, again, paying your money to the corporations that are trying to insert bovine growth hormones and other monstrosities into your milk and into the food supply. So once again, James and Cassie are talking about doing that in Portland, but I also managed to talk this week to Aaron Dykes and Melissa Melton of truthstreammedia.com, a relatively new website. I hope people have found this website and are checking it. They are putting out very important research on pretty much a daily basis. So I'll put the link in the show notes, of course, to truthstreammedia.com so you can go and check it out for yourselves. But earlier this week, I had a chance to talk to them about a very important subject they did. They did some very important research on the subject of GMO federal labeling laws and how it looks like the biotech companies are conspiring behind the scenes with the USDA and the FDA and the usual culprits to make sure that whenever federal labeling laws are passed about GMOs in the United States, that they contain backdoors and exceptions, of course, to allow a certain percentage of GMOs to be slipped into all food products without being labeled as such. And of course, again, this is no surprise. I think we understand this is exactly the game plan that the globalist corporations use. They use the big stick of government to pass laws that then are selectively enforced on anyone who would be their competition, whereas the big globalist corporate insider corporations get the pass and they get to put their crap into the food supply without so much as a second thought. So we talked about this extremely important subject and the research that they've been doing on this subject. And then at the end, we talked a little bit more about this idea of how people can start implementing this in their own lives and how it doesn't have to be an all at once 100% all or nothing purist scenario, that it can be done in stages and people can wean themselves off of the big food system. So bringing us back then to the solutions and what people can do in their own kitchen to control what's going in their own bodies. I guess a lot of people understand this intuitively, understand that this is really the solution, but are put off by the fact that this is such a huge change to implement. It's so much easier just to go to the supermarket and just pick up whatever kind of processed crap they're selling than it is to actually change your habits. What can you say about that? And for people who are discouraged by this, do they have to do it 100% all overnight, or can they do this in stages?
We're doing it in stages.
I think it all starts with a step, and you know, it's going to lead to something bigger. When you're picking out foods, if you get them locally, as local as your backyard, or if you get it from a supermarket, look for stuff that's going to help you build immunity. Look for stuff that's not going to clog down your digestion. Focus on clean sources of protein before you go to the carbs and the various wheats and pastas, because really that whole grain department. I think it's the
majority of the middle of the supermarket, isn't it? That's basically all processed and filled with crap.
Sure.
So start on the outsides. That's another good hint.
And you heard Napoleon talk about an army moves on its stomach. Well, a population also moves on its stomach, and those in power have been using food as a weapon for a long time. Feeding us stuff like grains, they found basically works as an opiate. It keeps people complacent, and it's, you know,
it makes you hungry.
It becomes literally opiate of the masses. You also eat more, but
cytotoxin in your brain.
The type of foods you eat are going to determine, to a certain extent anyway, the kind of behavior you're going to have and the kind of attitudes you're going to have towards the social order.
Well, and the thing about organic, too, people say it's too expensive, I can't afford it. I mean, it is all we really have right now. And so I would say afford organic now as much as you possibly can, or try to afford the medical bills that you're going to have to pay later when you get really ill from all of this stuff. I mean, how it starts is it hurts people in their gut. It disrupts their gut flora. It causes their intestinal lining to break down. And when you have that going on, that's where nutrients first enter your body. And when nutrients can't enter your body properly in that area, then you have 200 to 300 different symptoms that can happen to you in a range of diseases. And I think that's why in a big majority we're seeing, like off the charts here in America for sure, just everything is going up. Everything, every kind of disease, disorder, Alzheimer's, cancer, I mean, you name it.
And bottom line, you want to stay out of the hospital at all costs. Try not to go there, and if you have to go there, get out literally minutes, seconds, as
Allopathic
quick as you
medicine
can.
is not trying to heal you. It is trying to mask your symptoms so that you will come back for more later. I mean, that's really all it can do.
But
So,
money, of course, as we know, is an exchange, and it's what are you going to ultimately put into your body? If you're going to use money to buy entertainment and television, it's not really going to net you anything. It's probably going to harm you. You've got to be putting some things that are building health and longevity into your body, even if you don't want to live, at least so you can think straight.
nice.
It's some world they've got built.
It's true. Well, an ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure, and that's absolutely the case for food as well. All right. Well, we've touched, I think, on all the bases. Anything else that you'd like to bring to the listeners' attention regarding GMOs and what people can do about this?
It's an incredible battle. I would cite again the words of founding father Dr. Benjamin Rush. Well, I don't have his words exactly, but he said to the effect that if we don't institute the liberty of food and medicine to put into our bodies, that individuals can choose and that it's an individual right, if we don't recognize that, it's going to become a food and medicine tyranny. And because we didn't institute that in the U.S., we've definitely seen that on the rise. And there is a medical food industrial complex. Pharmaceuticals are very much in bed with all of that. And they want your soul, they want your body, they want your money. And I personally would disengage at all costs if possible.
That, and I think that people don't seem to realize that in the time of the Great Depression, things were really bad here. But a lot of people were self-sufficient. They were growing their own food. They had farms. Now we've got something like 96% of the population relying on the other 4% for their food. And that's something that people need to really think about, because as that number gets smaller and smaller of the people producing the food versus the people depending on it, then the amount of freedom you have as to what goes into that food is going to become less and less. I mean, they've got things here now called food printers where you basically just put a glop in there and it prints out something that looks like food. I mean, eventually we're not even going to know what's being put into what we're eating at all. I mean, we barely do now. So we need to think about getting more self-sufficient on every possible level we can. And even if you've got a small space, there are answers out there, lots of research that can be done for that. So that's what we're going to try and do, and we just hope everyone else will too, because the more people that do that, the less power this system has to control us with our food.
Once again, Aaron Dykes and Melissa Milton of TruthStreamMedia.com. Well, we could go on and on and on talking more about all of the various aspects and ways that people can boycott or boycott, which is to give your money to a corporation that you do support, or a company or a local businessman that you do support, rather than boycotting, withholding your money from that from a company. But we could talk about the numerous ways that this can be done and the numerous problems that this can help to alleviate, or at the very least to withdraw our support from the people that are creating the problems. And this applies to so many different things. But of course, one of the most basic, underlying, fundamental points of all human interaction is the economy. We are connected through the economy, and the connecting point, the thing that flows through the economy that connects us all, of course, is this money. That is the legal tender notes that pass for money in our day and age, that we are told is the basis for our economic system. And it is not until we start questioning that and start boycotting not only the big banks, but the biggest banks, the central banks, and their monopoly stranglehold over currency and what passes for money in our day and age, not until we start boycotting that will, I think, we have the knock-on effect of being able to take it down, the corporations as they come. So this is an exceptionally central point towards this whole operation, and nothing more important can be done than boycotting the Federal Reserve in the United States, or your central bank of choice wherever you happen to be living, and the funny money notes that they pass as currency. And this, again, is an overwhelming task to think about because of just how deeply embedded everyone is in the fiat funny money currencies that have been forced upon the world. But again, it's the type of thing where we can start finding the pressure points and start withdrawing our participation from that economy and putting it into other alternative currencies. And this is an exceptionally fundamentally important point that I've talked about quite a lot on the program in the past, so I will direct you back to some of my previous work. But why don't we take a look at a section of a GRTV video that I did recently on how to solve our fundamental economic problems by creating an alternative currency economy.
Susan Witt prints her own money.
I mean, this is really high quality paper.
but she's no counterfeiter. These are Berkshires, the local currency she developed for southern Berkshire, Massachusetts. It's a tool to help local businesses compete against the growing number of chain stores.
On the 20-unit note is Herman Melville.
The notes celebrate homegrown heroes and the beauty of the local landscape. $835,000 worth of Berkshires were printed. They're as good as greenbacks in more than 200 shops.
Nicholas can pay 30% of his tuition fees using TEM, a currency found only here in Volos. The local network for exchange and solidarity, which runs this new financial system, is based in the shop of seamstress Angeliki Ioanniti.
Εδώ σε αυτό το χαρτί συμπληρώνετε τι προσφέρετε στο δίκτυο και αν είναι κάτι που θέλετε να ζητήσετε που έχετε ανάγκη.
Having an alternative currency isn't unique. There are similar networks in other parts of the world and more than a dozen here in Greece. But with 900 members and more joining every day, this is the largest in a country unsure of what money it will be using in a few months' time.
A time bank is a way to give and get services without cash. Monica Kimball is the head of the Onion River Exchange in central Vermont.
It's a great way to kind of preserve and to raise your status quo without having to pay for it.
It's not a barter system where one person directly trades with another. Instead, people sign up through a website and list services they can provide and ones they want to get. For every hour you spend doing something for someone in your community, you earn 1 hour of credit. At the Onion River Exchange, there are 365 services being offered.
In 1934, in the midst of the Great Depression, stores and small businesses in Switzerland created a new economic system. Separate from Swiss francs, they made a unique unit without interest called Vir and operated transactions. Though this system was born from Gazelle's theory, it stopped the issue of the actual bills and limited the transaction only within the unit's Vir. The operation as a whole is conducted by the Vir Bank, and there are members throughout the country. Now, the Vir Economic Circle Cooperative is deeply rooted in the Swiss economy as a network of solidarity and includes 76,000 Swiss businesses, which make up 17% of all businesses in the country.
What kind of more expensive items can you purchase or services with the $25 and $50?
People can buy just about everything: food, transportation, clothing, housing, all the basics, and also some arts and culture as well. A lot of our members who are on AISH or fixed incomes, they're able to supplement their income through the use of Calgary dollars. So it's building the economy as well as a community at the same time.
These alternative systems do not require a resolution to be passed in Congress or Parliament, and do not require any wholesale change in the international financial order. These currencies already exist and are already thriving in numerous localities around the globe. Referred to as complementary currencies, they provide a way for communities to bypass the inflation tax and arbitrary confiscation that defines the modern era of central bank administered currency. Just as the fiat money printed up by these central banks, or issued as debt in the form of bank loans, are backed up by the collateral of the people's promise to pay later through the sweat of their own labor, so too can these complementary currencies be issued through the people's own labor. The difference being that in this system, the money is not controlled by banksters in closed-door meetings in faraway offices, but by the people themselves in their own backyards. One example of a complementary currency success story is the Ithaca Hours currency issued in Ithaca, New York. Launched in 1991 as a way to invigorate the local economy, Ithaca Hours have since facilitated millions of dollars in transactions and helped businesses and customers alike bypass the uncertainties of the Federal Reserve notes of the central banking economy. Earlier this week, I talked to Paul Glover, developer of the Ithaca Hours system, about the project and how it has transformed the local economy of Ithaca.
Well, 22 years ago in Ithaca, New York, I noticed that a lot of people, friends particularly, had skills and time that were not being employed or respected by the prevailing economy. And while we had much desire to create things and trade them with each other and many services we could provide to each other, we didn't have the money. So, since I have a background in graphic design, journalism, and arrogance, I went to my computer and designed paper money for Ithaca, New York. Designed pretty colorful money, with pictures of children, waterfalls, and trolley cars, and denominated in hours of labor. 1 hour note, half hour, quarter, eighth hour note, 2 hour note, and then began to issue to each of the pioneer traders who had agreed to be listed in the directory a specific starter amount. And the game began. An hour has been worth an hour of basic labor, or 10 US dollars, which at that time, 20 years ago, was double the minimum wage. People who usually expect more than $10 per hour of their service can charge multiple hours per hour, but the denomination puts between us as residents of our community that reminder that we are fellow citizens, not merely winners or losers scrambling for dollars. And it introduces us to each other on the basis of these skills and services that we have, that we are more proud to provide for each other than often is the case with a conventional job, just the stuff we have to do to get the money to pay the bills. So through that trading process, that more intimate scale process within the community, we're more easily able to become friends and lovers and political allies.
Well, it is an inspiring story, isn't it? It's an inspiring story, and tell people about how much money has circulated through this community. I mean, it's important for people to understand just how successful this has been.
Because we're not a computer system, we don't have a specific volume of trading recorded, but by the grapevine, by phone surveys, and over the years watching the money move, we were able to guess very reliably that several $1 million equivalent of this money has transacted over those years, making loans without charging interest up to $30,000 value, which is the fundamental monetary revolution in our system, then as well making grants of the money to over 100 community organizations. So it has had a powerful cultural benefit, even greater, I think, than the millions of dollars equivalent value transacted.
Now, similar ideas are springing up all across America and around the globe. From mutual credit systems to time banking to private currencies and social currencies, there are no shortage of ideas for how to transition off of the current system in a gradual manner while increasing and facilitating local trade. Last month I had the chance to talk to Wayne Walton, one of the organizers behind the Colorado Mountain Hours complementary currency, about this idea and how it is being implemented in the Summit County area. Exactly right. Well, let's talk about your specific example. You're there in Summit County, Colorado, where you have a number of businesses that are participating in this Our Currency program. Let's tell people about the program that you've set up and how it actually functions. What does it look like when someone wants to go out and buy a service through this program?
Well, I think the best place is to kind of start where the money is birthed. So the way we can create it as a credit is Ezra Pound says, for instance, that money is a certificate of work done if it's issued as a credit. So what we do is we establish what is the value that we believe in our community. And we believe in our community, local independent businesses, that's valuable to stay in business under the threats of globalism. There's so many businesses that are running out of business because it's difficult, because the dominant monetary system funds globalism at the destruction of community self-sufficiency. So we want to flip the pyramid. So we value that these businesses exist. So because they already exist, they have already produced the work. So we give them 20 hours just for raising their hand and saying that they'll participate. And we give them, that's equivalent to $200. So that gets them started, and they're, simply by raising their hand, we give them pieces of paper. When the business signs them, that's when it becomes money, because we're trying to show people that their value is the money. The same way that earlier that those businesses created the IOUs with their signature, in the same way they're creating these credits as a recording of work that has already been done. Additionally, whoever recruited that business, whatever individual, even you, for instance, if you knew a local independent business here in Summit County, or any listener, if you know any independent business here in Summit County and you get them to join, you get 10 hours, because that is a certificate of work that you did, because you have a relationship with a local independent business, you recruited them. So by doing this, we set up a self-sufficient, self-funding barter network. These new businesses are listed in a database, and they all just look to each other, then they can go spend the currency with one another.
As with so many other ideas for resistance of the status quo, the complementary currency idea is only as strong as the public's willingness to use it. Sadly, the comfortable inertia that the status quo offers is enough to keep many from even entertaining the idea of using a different form of money. But as the people in Volos, Greece, and other cash-strapped locations around the globe are finding, having an established complementary currency can help a community survive and even thrive in the midst of the economic chaos that we can all see coming. Just as currencies like Ithaca Hours and Mountain Hours have proven themselves to be successful, so have many complementary currencies withered away from lack of community support. But in this age of Cyprus-style bail-ins, debt ceiling crises, and the ever-looming risk of hyperinflationary currency death spirals, it is incumbent on all of us to identify and support, or even create, a complementary currency system in our own local area. For more on this story and other breaking news and current events, please go to globalresearch.ca. For more research and analysis by James Corbett, please go to corbettreport.com. If we could ultimately take out that fundamental leverage that they have over us with the phony money, the pieces of paper that they're printing up and passing off as money in our day and age, if we can remove that lever of power from the banksters, the oligarchs, the would-be globalist connected insiders, then we have really, truly removed the fundamental fulcrum through which they apply their leverage throughout all of society. And it would be amazing to think about if we relied solely on alternative currencies, local currencies, community currencies, cryptocurrencies, what have you. Then how would they even pay their enforcers, their goons, their policemen and women in the jackbooted thug uniforms to come along and to try to put you in a cage for resisting their random dictates and decrees? It wouldn't work because, again, the currency itself would not be in their hands. That's an exceptionally important point. And again, the ramifications are almost mind-boggling to think about. So that's another key point at which we can start withdrawing our support from the system. So this is fundamentally the underlying point that I'm making today, and it goes hand in glove with the point that we're consistently making here on the Corbett Report, which is that you are a free and independent human being, and your actions do have meaning and they do have value, especially when you withdraw your support from the system that you are raging against, and simply start putting that time, money, energy, and effort into something that you want to build up, whether that be an alternative currency, whether that be a local organic farmer, whether that be an open source software project that's creating something of value that you can freely download and tinker with as you will, that doesn't have a backdoor NSA booby trap access. So again, there are as many different ways to approach this topic as there are people out there who have different expertise in different areas. Everyone can contribute to these ideas and contribute different ways of boycotting the system and buying into products that are actually useful for us.
Power of the country was taken away from the people, but it was given up in the Federal Reserve Act. The Federal Reserve is no more federal than Federal Express.
You try to hide and destroy our freedom. You seek agenda. We know you anti-American. You come forward American Constitution. 1913, corrupt in the system. Devalue dollar, hyperinflation. The Federal Reserve, controlled by Lucifer. He can see you lying